Fantasy Sports Show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are listening to us. This is the Fantasy Sport Podcast, and I am your host, Rob Kennedy, the Supercoach Hawk, sitting here with Mickie Dell, the big horse. How are you, my friend?
Robbie, well, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, do we have a rip snorter for you today? If you don't mind, Robbie, let's introduce him.
It's all yours, mate. This is all yours.
As you can see below us, we've got royalty, I guess we can call it, from the East Gippsland area. Pick 17 in the 2011 AFL draft, Clay Smith. Welcome to the show, mate.
How are you, boys? Good. Thanks for having me.
Doing well. Thanks for being on the show. Look, we've talked a lot to our listeners. Obviously, we are Insight Fantasy Sport. We talk about all things Supercoach, but Mickie and I have a lot talked about our love for the game, how much we wish we could have played AFL footy. So to get anybody on who's of your caliber, we appreciate you coming on. We try to bring our listeners something a bit different. And, mate, to have you on and go through a few stories, and it makes putting Supercoach to the side very easy to have a bit of fun and have a bit of chat. So I know you and the big horse. He told us at the start of the show, didn't he, that he doesn't like being called the big horse. I call bullshit on that. He loves it. We're going to call him the big horse throughout the whole show. Okay. You guys have a little bit of a rich history together, growing up together and playing footy together. So, mate, we've done this a few times, Del. I'm going to hand over the host duties to you to begin with, and maybe tell us a little bit about where you guys grew up together, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, okay. So to start off with, so Clay and I grew up in the East Gippsland area, but this show is about Clay Smith. It's not about the big horse. It's not about, our super coach. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to jump straight in. And Clay, what we're going to do is we're going to start by giving the viewers a bit of an understanding as to your teenage years, I guess, growing up in Bairnsdale or playing footy for Lucknow, I think it was.
Yep.
Tell us about your junior years, I guess your interleague years, and what people probably don't know about you is that you're quite good at basketball as well.
Yeah, basketball was probably my main sport before footy. Yeah. Obviously grew up in Bairnsdale, played for a little club town called Lucknow, right through all my juniors from Auskick right through to under 16s. Moved down to Mafra for a year after that in top 8 16s and then TAC Cup. But, grew up at Lucknow for my whole time and played a lot against Micka's side down in Lake Central. So they played us in a lot of grand finals, but unfortunately we won most of those. We had a pretty strong side. Me and speaking to Mickie before we come online, Shawnee White, who's my best mate that I grew up with since I was a kid, played every game of footy from 10 years old to 18. Right through all the sides from Lucknow to Mafra to TAC to Vic Country. So he knocked me off in, I think, 6th best and fairest in a row. I was runner-up every year. But we're in the same side. So we're not a bad little combo in a little country town. Both of us turned out to be pretty good footy players. So lucky to play together. And, we linked up with Micka probably through basketball and through footy. Played a lot of basketball growing up. Played in the Australia Cup for Victorian Bush Rangers. Played off in the final. So, I loved me basketball, and it was probably I focused a little bit more on that growing up. But I didn't have the big leap, and probably wasn't as athletic as you needed to be. I got a lot of fouls, as you could imagine if you've seen me. I was always in foul trouble. So, and then once I sort of got to 15, 16, footy sort of started to take over a little bit. Probably like that bit more competitive, rough and tumble. So, I love my sport a lot growing up. Yeah.
So when we're talking about your junior years, we were speaking before we came online, there was a rich group of players from the East Gippsland area that have gone on not just to play AFL football, but a lot of VFL, a lot of Sandford, when we're talking about Shawnee White, Simon Deary, Josh Scott, these sorts of players. You obviously excelled and got to the highest level and played some really good footy, but when we're talking about a core group of players that are around that age group, East Gippsland was really spoiled, I guess, for choice when it came to talent down there.
Yeah, definitely. There were some good players, and Scotto was actually one that was at Lakes and that we played against a lot. Little Bo Lumana and Reggie and those
right.
boys. But yeah, there was a fair few. You even look at like a little bit younger with Tommy Bryan and those boys. They're up playing in the Northern Territory League and stuff like that with Simon and Scotto's obviously gone over to Adelaide and playing some really good footy over there. And there was definitely a good crop of kids that come through.
Yeah. I'll take it one step back and your basketball. So you said that you played for the Bush Rangers and in the Australia Cup. For me, it was always, I thought you were going to go along the lines of you're playing representative basketball, you stepped into state and then on a national level. Was it purely because of that rough and tumble, the fouls, you couldn't be as aggressive as what you could be on the footy field as to what swayed you? Or was there one particular point where you're like, yeah, this is for me?
It's probably location more than anything, where we were. So obviously, played in the Australia Cup and was doing really well, but you had all the like the camps and the carnivals and stuff that would start locally and regionally, and you'd work your way up to get into all the rep sides. So we used to have those in Bairnsdale with Wayne Royal and stuff like that, and we'd have a core group of us that would go. And me and Simon played a lot. And then after I played in the champs, me and Simon were travelling to Melbourne every Friday night to play. So we travelled down to Traralgon and train, and we travelled to Melbourne every Friday and play. So it was a fair commitment just to try and keep that going, I guess. And then sort of when you get to 15, 16, that's when sort of the footy starts to kick off a little bit more. I think there's more rep opportunities a bit younger with the basketball, and something that I loved. And then, the rep sides with Gippy Power and stuff like that, Vic Country, that sort of started to kick off around that 15, 16, 17-year-old mark, and probably started to grow a little bit. I was a little bit of a small kid, and then sort of, grew up a little bit, sort of 16, 17, and started to fill out. So, I reckon it was probably a little bit more opportunity, that it was a bit harder to sort of to take up, but definitely love both just as much. But I think footy just gave me more opportunity at the age where it needed to. Yeah,
good. And for those of you listening at home and aren't aware of the East Gippsland area, from home to Melbourne just to play that Friday night game, 3 hours one way?
Yeah, 3.5 hours. Yeah, one way. So we'd be getting back, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and then getting up and playing footy the next day.
When did you start sort of realizing that AFL was a true possibility? Like, did you just sort of start getting an inkling? What was the moment when you went, you know what, this is a really good chance?
Look, growing up, I could play. Like locally, I was always a good player, but you never sort of think that far ahead when you're that age. And then started making the Gippy Power sides. Wasn't the best kick, but it was always just my competitiveness and probably my fitness and drive. And it probably wasn't until my bottom age TAC Cup year. Played every game as a bottom age player in TAC Cup, and got runner-up in the BNF as a 17-year-old to Dice Heppel. So he was our captain, top age. He beat me by a vote, but he missed 5 games for the carnival that year for Vic Country, which you don't tell people that. He beat me by a vote.
Yeah, that's right.
But doing that.
Don't let facts get in the way of a good story. Never.
Yeah,
never.
Exactly. I think that bottom age year sort of really set me up, and I sort of took my footy to a new level. And then it was pretty funny. I actually moved houses at that stage with mum and dad, and I never got a Vic Country letter the following year. So the first Vic Country tryouts, all the boys, Shawnee, Simon, and a few of the other Gippy boys went down, and they all laughed. They said, "Oh, are you coming?" I said, "No, I'm not." I was pissed off internally, but I tried to play it cool. And they said, "Are you coming?" I said, "No, I didn't get a letter." And they all thought I was taking the piss, and I wasn't. And it wasn't until they got down there and they spoke to the coaches and that, and they all said, "Where's Clay?" And they said, "Oh, he didn't get a letter." And they said, "Well, he's meant to be here." I moved house and I actually never got it. So, ended up playing in the carnival played every game, captained one of the sides, and got MVP for the 18s championship for Vic Country. So I sort of just, it built on year, and got more and more confident and started to play some of my best footy as a junior.
Beautiful. Awesome. What we'll do now is you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, top age, TAC, AFL's potentially the next step. When was it when clubs started contacting you going, we're looking at you, we're looking for this, this, and this? Like, did it start off by you garnering a lot of interest, or was there not a lot of interest? How did it go for you?
Managers start talking to you a lot before clubs do. They try and get in real early in the piece. So they would have been for March, April, May, sort of 2011, sort of before the season even starts. And then you don't really hear from the clubs a lot during the year. You might get a little bit. You might hear some scouts are at games to watch. And then sort of once that carnival happens of it, the championships with Vic Country and stuff like that, you start to hear a little bit more. And then obviously with the draft camp and the combine. So you go along to that for the 2 or 3 days. And I spoke to every club bar. GWS was the only club I didn't speak to. So they mustn't have liked me.
Which is an interesting thing in hindsight, isn't it? But
we'll
get to that. If people don't know the history, they're not true fans. We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I spoke to 17 of the 18 clubs at the combine.
Awesome.
So
was there anyone?
You go.
Was there anyone that stuck out to you, Clay, during that process that you thought, "Yep, I'm going there"?
Not really. Like some of the stuff, like you'd swear they just get you in just to, I don't know, just to ask you a couple of questions and sort of figure out what you like. But I got a fair inkling, like Macca, Brendan McCartney, who was a coach of the Dogs at the time, actually come down to Bairnsdale before the draft, met mum and dad and come and spoke to me at home and seemed pretty keen, I think, travelling from Melbourne to come down there and speak to me.
For sure.
Yeah, so I wasn't too sure, but I think it was the day of the draft or the day before, my manager rang me and said, "You're going to the Dogs." And I just said, like, how do you even know? Like, the draft hasn't even been yet. Like, don't pull my leg. Like, I don't need to be taken for a ride yet. I don't care where I go. But he had me, Brandon Ellis, and who was the young fellow that went to Freo that year? Forgot his name. But he was manager of all three of us, and we were picked 15, 16, 17 or 16, 17, 18. So he'd spoken with the clubs and they'd sort of said, "This is who we're taking at this one." So he sort of had the gist of it before it happened. So he told me I was going there and I did. So he got something right.
Good. You punching the way, Robbie, to see who was at.
Mate, you know me too well. Been doing this long enough now that I'm going to jump straight on.
I should know his name. Like his name.
I feel like it's giving me the wrong draft. I will definitely get there. It's giving me the wrong one. But you go one more question. We're going to draft
Sheridan.
Tommy Sheridan.
Oh, Sheridan.
Okay.
Tommy Sheridan. Yeah. Fair, cool.
All right, let's go to draft night.
Mate, we get to draft night. So, 2011, pick 17. Mate, it's a great draft class. When you say, John O'Patton, I mean, I know he was the sort of standout to go number one, but when you look at some other names that are in there, Canelio, Toby Green, Sam Doherty, Taylor Adams, I think all just went a little bit before you, but you look at a Tom Mitchell who went 21, to have yourself picked at 17. Now, I'm sort of like you. If somebody told me, look, the Doggies are taking you, until someone shows me the signed dotted line, what was the vibe like for you going into draft day?
Definitely nervous. Obviously, I spoke to a lot of clubs. Sort of went through halfway through my top age year, sort of being maybe a second or third round, and then after my carnival and the way I finished the year to being first round. But you get told things, and then like you said, until your name's on the dotted line or on that screen, you don't really believe it. So I had a few friends around at home at mum and dad's place, watched it with family and friends, and I was lucky. I got it out of the way early, which was nice. I didn't have to sit around too nervously and wait.
Yeah.
And then, there was some fair celebrations that night. And then it was about 3 days later, I was packed up and moved to Melbourne. The draft was on the Thursday, and I was moved into a new house, new family on the Sunday in Melbourne, and at training on the Monday.
Can you express to anyone, like, I mean, there's not many people that get to experience that feeling of a name being called out. Is it something that does stick with you vividly in your mind about what it felt like, or can you express to anybody what that feeling is like to get to that point and get your name called out?
Yeah, pretty crazy feeling. Like you live and you dream and you hope that you can play AFL and it's I won't lie, at that age, once your name's read out, you're like, I've made it. But realistically, like that's just the beginning. And it's a big step and it's a big change. And people that move interstate or fair way away from home, you leave a lot behind, and it is a big sacrifice. But at the time, that's everything. Like, you're on an AFL list, like you're getting all the gear, and like it's good fun. You're getting boots and jumpers, and you're traveling here and traveling there. Like it's a great lifestyle, but the hard work just begins when you get there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Anyone who knows your story a little bit from the outside looking in, tough journey, tough gig, and you obviously did the tough way, but did it well as well. But what does day one look like for you? So young Clay Smith walks into the club. Is there anyone that intimidated you? Who put their arm around you straight away? What did that look like for you, day one?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. Obviously, walking in, you got players like Adam Cooney, Ryan Griffin, Bob Murphy, Gia, like blokes like that rolling around, Daniel Cross. Like, I didn't know a whole lot about the Dogs before I got there. I was an Essendon supporter growing up, and I didn't watch a whole lot of the Dogs. So, but I definitely knew the superstars there, and it's pretty cool when you walk into a locker room and they're standing there, and you're pretty sheepish. Like, you don't say a whole lot. I got intimidated when it was the first week on the track. Obviously got my number, and I was parked next to Gia in the locker room. And we're doing some contested work in the first week, and I was up against Gia, and I swung the arm back and I clipped him right in the nose and gave him a blood nose. And he turned around and said, "You better watch your back for the rest of the day." And like, I shit myself, like terrified. I'm like, I've just whacked this absolute legend, like this is blood, and like he could put on like just a dirty, mean face, like. And I was shitting him, and he come up after training and put his arm around me with the biggest grin and just said, "Mate, I'm only joking." And I was like, I was petrified for the whole of training. Like, I've been at this pub for a week, I'm making enemies.
As you would be though. Like, when you look back, I think anybody looks back to themselves at that age. We all thought at the time, we're adults, we're all good, and you get to the age that we're at now, and when you look back at you, then you're a child. Like, you're still a child who's fresh, coming out and getting involved. Like, were there moments? Can you talk about were there any sort of anyone tested you at the start? Was there sort of a bit of hazing to begin with? What's kind of life at the Dogs as a first year player?
Nah, clubs are really good now. I think it might have been a little bit tougher back in the day, but no, they really do. They bring you in, and you're like family straight away. And there's a lot of kids that got drafted. I think we had 8 in my year that got picked up by the Dogs, or 7. There's 3 in the rookie draft, and I think we took 4 in the draft. So we had 7 new boys there. So we had a good young crop, but no, the boys are awesome. I got along really, really well with Griff. He sort of took me under his wing. Did a lot of travelling with him, going up to Adelaide to his family farm, shooting and riding motorbikes and hunting. And so he loved that country lifestyle as well. So we did a lot of that together. Matty Boyd really took me under his wing training-wise. There's one player I really looked up to. His training standards and everything he did, he was is a beast. So I tried to tag onto him and Crossy as much as I could. I was always a very good runner, so I got pretty much straight into the top running group with them, and they used to take the piss out of me because as a first and second year player, you get taken out of some of the drills late in training and in the preseason just to look after your body. And Boydie used to tell me to go get back on mum's bottle and just jump on the sideline, and I didn't like it very much.
So, mate, seasons begin, you drive into it from there. I mean, did a little bit of research, mate. Hopefully you can fill the gaps in a bit more. And I mean, just for anyone who's joined online and starting to listen to us, or at this point, we're talking to Clay Smith, AFL legend from the Western Bulldogs, thanks to Standard Squeeze and Snap Fitness. But Clay, 2012, 2013, you play 16 games in your first season, you play 14 in your next. Just before I don't want to jump straight to the end. Talk us through those first 2 years and sort of what you learned about yourself as a player and what it was like to make that step up to AFL standards.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I was the first pick that they took and got first dibs on numbers and training went well. I sort of come in as probably a ready-to-play sort of weight. I wasn't a key sort of forward or back or anything and didn't have to grow into my body too much. I think I come in at maybe 81, 82 kilos. My max playing weight was 85. So I was fairly ready at that stage. So I was lucky. I had a good preseason, played in some of the preseason games. And then, my first game, played round 1, kicked 4 in me first against West Coast and went off in the third quarter with full body cramps and Jared Grant got subbed on and I got subbed off and the crowd was booing and but honestly I couldn't walk. I think I would have overplayed that game in my head about 100 times the night before and another 100 before the game. So but yeah, I was lucky. We weren't too great as a side when I first got there. We were struggling a little bit, so I probably got some games earlier than what some other draft picks would have at higher clubs and teams playing for finals. But really fast-tracked sort of my beginning. And I was lucky. I played 16 in the first and then 14 in my first, 15 in my second. So at that stage, I was loving life. Got drafted and we started to win a few games. And, I just thought, how good's this? And then the torrid run started in round 15 in 2013.
Talk us through that. I mean, I couldn't think. I mean, everybody hears the statements of people who sort of go through it. It's the loneliest place you could be in. You're in the rehab group, working through those things. As you just said, I mean, I'll take your words that you just spoke about, loving life in a place that could never be better. You've just been drafted. You've played 30 games in 2 seasons, kick 4 on debut. I forgot about the red vest that you got subbed there as well, but got through the sub days, mate. But and then stuff like this happens. What's the first thing that goes through your mind when the injuries strike? Yeah,
it was. I'd never missed a game of any sport due to injury before that. I sort of was blessed, I guess, up until that point. I was very lucky. And then it was actually against Dice Apple, funnily enough, in the AFL, and went up for a mark, come down, and sort of landed awkwardly and. He took the mark and got up and went to snap it, and I got up and went to chase him and just fell over again, and I couldn't run, and I'd done something. And then, when they gave me the news, they went down and did all the tests and said, "You've done your ACL." And I sort of said, "What's that?" I didn't even know what one was.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, you won't be playing footy for a while. You could be out for 12 months." So then reality sort of starts to hit. I was in tears and you're sort of, trying to get your thoughts together and thinking, will I play again after the first one, let alone after the third? But, life was just perfect, I guess. Everything was falling into place. And then, you get chucked some hurdles in life and some potholes and some wrong turns. And that was the first one of them. But then, got back from that one pretty soon after about 8.5, just 9 months. I think I played 2 games in the VFL, and then I was actually going to get brought back into the AFL side the week I did it. Mako spoke to me, and then Griff and Coons got back up from injury, and he just said, "Hey, just have 1 more week in the VFL, we'll bring you back in." And it was exactly a year later against Essendon again in the VFL, and then I did my second. So, the second one was the worst one. I'm actually dealing with it now at the local footy club I'm coaching. I had a young boy. I was assistant coach there last year. He just did his first one and he got back this year, played 2 games and he's just done his other one. So just going through all that with him at the moment and sort of helping him through with the process and and just sort of how to deal with it and put my arms around him. And so, yeah, the second one was the worst one because you know what you're in for. You sort of, it's good and bad in a way because the first one, it's an unknown and you sort of get through it and it's done. And the second one, you sort of know everything that you got to do and how long it takes and sort of how careful they are with you. And got back after that, and I think I only played one game in the VFL after my second. I think I had 30 and kick 4 or something stupid, and come straight back into the AFL. We went up to Sydney and we beat Sydney in the wet, which we hadn't done for a very, very long time. And I got through the first AFL game back, and it was a massive one, and we won up there, and life was good again. And then we come back down and we're playing the Saints at Marvel it is now, and I think we're up by 50 points at halftime, but I did my knee just before halftime. I actually hurt it. I literally just took a mark on the sideline and sort of hyperextended a little bit and sort of felt something. And I just said, I once you've done a few, you know your body a little bit. So I come off and just spoke to the docs and stuff and said, look, I don't think I've done it, but I've done something. I went down and did all the tests again, and they told me I'd done it again. But my rehab and everything I did, the strength in my legs was still strong enough that it was actually, I could still run and change direction and stuff. And I said, I don't know if I'll ever play footy again after this. I said, so I want to go back out there. And they said I couldn't do any more damage, so they let me go back out. And then it collapsed. Yeah, it collapsed on me again just before halftime, and I ended up getting taken off on the stretcher and everything. And I think we went from a 50-point halftime lead to losing by 60 that day.
And look, I don't want to get like morbid. We want to be up and about. We'll get to some of the happy stuff, but I think it's important to talk about this. As you said, you're working the local level and putting your arm around somebody. And I think people go through this a lot. So, where was the mentality? You said yourself just then that, you thought you might never play again. Just to give everyone a bit of insight, 2 questions. One, just so you know, where were you at contract time at that point? Probably the least of your worries, but where were you at that point? And then the next one, more importantly, did you start losing trust in your body? And was there that general feel of like, can my body allow me to do what I have the skills to do?
Yeah, 100%.
You were a proven player. You went out there and you could play the game and you could play it at an elite level. So, yeah, just where was your mindset at there?
I think I signed a 3-year contract extension in my second year, I think. So I still had a year to run after that year. So that was the year. So that my third one was in 2015. So I still had 2016 in my contract. And I don't think if I didn't, I don't think I would have kept going. I still had a year to run. So it was sort of like, well, what have I got to lose? But I definitely did start to, when I come back after my third in that grand final year, that sort of 3, 4, 5 game mark, was probably the most nervous 3 games of my life. Because it was just waiting for it to go again. Because every time I come back, I felt awesome. I didn't miss a beat. As soon as I got back in the VFL or AFL side, attack on the footy, I could win. I was winning footy. I was kicking goals. It was like I didn't miss any games. So I never doubted myself once I got back on the field and sort of just slotted back in. But it was just, it sort of kept happening at that same time every time. So, after the third, it was, those 3, 4 games were very sort of like, I was on edge. I was pretty much just waiting for it to happen again, to be honest. And then it didn't. And then, started to put some games together, got to the 5, 6, 7 game mark. And then by the end of that year, I think I played 13 straight. Which is something that I'd never done since my first or second year. So I think I played 30 games in my first 2, and I played, I think it was 4 AFL games in the next 3 or something. So, it puts life into perspective a little bit.
I'll ask a quick question while you're on that, mate. Did you get around players like Alex Johnson, Daniel Menzel, guys who have all had multiple ACL injuries and sort of get together and talk about rehab and processes and, help you be diligent in getting through everything?
Yeah, definitely. Spoke with both those boys. I don't know if it's like an unwritten rule, but if you see someone sort of do a knee and you've done one, you sort of reach out. You've got like a little community of knees. And unluckily and unfortunately, we had a fair few at the Dogs at the time as well. So Rocky Smith had done one. I did one. I think me and Libba went through my second and third and his first and second together. So, yeah, we had a little bit. Murph obviously did one, Jackie Redpath. So we had a fair bit of it at the club as well. So every club goes through it. You don't wish it upon anyone. It's one of the worst ones and sort of sets you out for a little bit. But then even about the stuff I was talking to you about off air, I just went and seen the young fella tonight after work. So that sort of stuff puts life into perspective a little bit more, even more so. We've had some injuries this year. So, I always sort of looked at the positive side of life and took the silver lining and it turned me into a better person. I sort of grew up a little bit through my injuries, did some work with Ladder, with youth and homeless kids and mentored a young fellow named Leliza and doing stuff like that. Sort of, you go, well, look, I'm injured, but this little kid's run away from home and supporting himself, and he's still smiling and getting on with life. And it's sort of like, I haven't got much to sook about here. So, I sort of grew up and probably turned into sort of the person I am now because of some of the injuries. So, I've never begrudged any of it. Like, fuck, I'd love to. Sorry about swearing. I'd love to still be playing footy, but that's life. But there's a lot of people worse off, and I got the ultimate glory and something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I'm looking forward to the reunions. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, like I can still walk, talk, and jog around, and I'm still involved in footy, and I think I will be for the rest of my life.
Good. And look, I reckon we want to get to what life after footy looks like and what Clay Smith's doing now. From what I've seen from the outside, mate, you're doing some great things, which is awesome to see. But this is the point where if we had some cool musical montage, we'd start playing it to hopefully turn the beat around a little bit as we jingle on into 2016. As you said, you're looking forward to the reunion. I'm sure you're counting down the days. I couldn't imagine a better reunion than an AFL Premiership. But
we missed the 5-year mark because it was in COVID.
Yeah. Oh, is the 5-year a thing? Is that a thing? Is that where it begins? 5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
Begins if you want it to begin? Is that how
it was going to be?
Yeah. Okay. I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. It probably means the 10 years just going to be double as good, mate. So no doubt we'll hopefully our podcast is still going by then. We'll get you back on for some good insights.
Absolutely.
2016, mate. So obviously coming back from the knee, you join the team in round 15. You look like you just don't skip a beat. You're straight back in. The Bulldogs are up and about. I remember it being one of my most enjoyable grand finals to watch of all time. But your final series, I just want to go into some of your final series. 19 disposals and a goal, 16 disposals and 2 goals. The prelim deserves a podcast on its own, 26-4. And I'm sure, like, I love the smile on your face for anyone who's watching us on YouTube. As everyone's listening, he's got a big smile.
That's the best game I've played in his whole career. So,
mate, I did put a little asterisk on there, which is going to be the question is that the best game of your career? But you talked about your 4 goals on debut. Wasn't a bad effort either. But, and then 13-1 in the grand final with 11 tackles, mind you. So we'll put that over there. But talk to us about that finals. Let's maybe just talk about you in the season and then leading into finals. Like how are you feeling? Where's the body at? Where's the mind at? Where's life at?
Mine was good. Obviously, body came good again and got back in the side and we were making a run towards finals, which is something that I never thought I was going to get a chance to play. And So the end of the year before in 2015, we lost to Adelaide in an elimination final, and just watching that and just wanting to be out there on those sort of days. So luckily enough, the body come good at the right time, and got a good crack at it. And I don't know why, but even as a junior, I think finals and big games was something that I enjoyed, and sort of went to that next level. And had a really good final series, which is nice. You always want to have an impact, I guess, when something like that happens. So, but it was, we had a team full of just good role players that played for the team, and we didn't really have any big superstars at that stage. Bonte was obviously coming through and stuff like that, but we just had a team full of players that played for each other and played the right way, and it was very special to be a part of.
Am I right in saying it's the year where you guys were the underdog in every single game, wasn't it?
Every game. So we played West Coast over there, and I think they were the hottest team in the comp coming into finals. They'd won like 5 of their last 6, and you don't beat West Coast in West Coast. And then come down and played the Hawks, and they're coming off a 3-peat, so they're going all right.
Move on, move on. It's okay.
And then obviously up to Sydney, and GWS was one of the best. And then so pretty much all away games too. So I think Dale Morris's mum had a bet on us at the start of the final series, and we're paying $63 or $64 or something. She had $100 on it. So she cleaned up. But yeah, we got on a roll. Like, we lost to Fremantle in the last game of the home and away season.
Remember that?
Had a few injuries. There sort of wasn't anything on the line. Like, we couldn't really go higher or lower, and we just we were flat, and we'd sort of they gave us a bit of a touch up. So I dare say everyone thought when you got West Coast in 2 weeks over there that not much is going to change. But we just went in there with that belief that why not us, and we knew our best footy was good enough to match it with anyone. And it was one of the best things Bevo sort of did. He instilled belief in everyone, and he always did believe in us and our abilities, and got the best out of us. And that game really set us up. Once we won that one, it was like we were in the rooms after the game. I'm getting tingles now. It was just, you knew we could do it after that. That just instilled everything that we needed. And then after that game, it was like, we're not getting beat. Like, that was honestly the feeling. Like, it didn't feel like we were going to lose.
I think you spot it. You were that from a supporter's viewing point. I've always had a soft spot for my dog. The dogs, my grandfather used to go for them, so I always had a soft spot. You couldn't not like the dogs as well. Like, there's just something about the dogs that you're like, yeah, they get in, they have a crack, and go for it. I think, as you said, beating West Coast in West Coast at that point in time is a massive effort, huge. Then to go and beat a team that had won 3 in a row, surely, and you guys looked like that team that when the tail was up, you guys moved the ball so fast. You were just ready to go. It was kind of nearly before you saw Richmond. Like, we went from a 3-peat where Hawthorn were quite steady with their movement. When they got a kick in from the back line, they could get it down there pretty quickly and go. But you guys nearly are a lot of people probably give credit to Richmond. You guys started doing that maybe before they did. It was as if you guys just practiced contest work, like that quick handball, and off you got, because you just did it better than anybody.
The handball club got a bit of a media run that year. So we did handball
thing?
Club. Yeah, handball club was a thing, definitely. Yeah, we did that 3-4 times a week for half an hour. There's something that we worked on a lot, and being able to move the ball from inside the stoppage to out and release our runners.
I love that I get to hear that. Like, I mean, I've talked about that to mates, and I love talking footy, and I was like, they just did that so well, as if it looked like they just practiced that kind of stuff. There was like, you know what? This is what we're going to do better than anybody. And if we do it better than anybody, we're going to be out, and off we go. Which is cool. It's great to hear that that's actually the answer, which is unreal. So, mate, prelim. We've got to talk the prelim first, and then we'll get to the Grandy. When did you know that you were like? I know you kicked. I'm pretty sure you kicked the first goal of the game. Am I right? Yeah. Kicked the first goal of the game. But when did you know that you were on, and this was going to be a big one?
Well, I don't want to dampen the mood again, but it was actually probably the hardest week of my life in football. It was a week I lost one of my best mates. It was actually a Lakes Entrance boy. So he was in a car accident before the Hawthorn game.
Wow.
And I went out for breakfast after it, and the boys told me after the game they didn't want me to stress about it before. And he ended up getting put into a coma. And so they ended up turning his life support off on the Tuesday before we played GWS. So his initials are on my arse cheek when I lost a bet to him back in Bairnsdale. So It was honestly one of the hardest weeks. I was on the piss a couple of nights that week with just the boys from back home. Sat around the backyard in Melbourne, told some stories, and and Bevo, he gave me the option of not playing, but that was never going to happen. In the rooms before the game, putting the black armbands on in tears. It was, but I was always going to play footy. It was something that he would have wanted me to do.
Absolutely.
So, the emotion after that first goal meant a lot. But even after the game, I won best on ground, got to watch. I sat in the rooms and I look back now with so much happiness and watching the way I played, but I didn't celebrate that game whatsoever. I was numb. So it's something that I talk about now with a lot of happiness and obviously what come after it. But at the time, it was the hardest week in football that I ever had to deal with.
No, mate. Mate, appreciate you sharing that. Unbelievable. Mate, credit to you for how you got yourself up. I think sport's a funny thing like that, isn't it? It has the power to really pick us up with what's going on and teammates, and we have that ability to cross a line and get out there, and you don't forget, you don't not think about it. It's on the mind, but you can still get out there and get around and do what you did. So, mate, massive credit to you.
It was a bit of an escape for me. You could go out there and just play footy and not think about too much. You just go out and play. So, in a way, in a selfish way, it was trying to clear my head as well and try not to think about it. But you're going out there and like I played for him. But it's a place where you can just go out and just sort of forget about everything else and block out the outside world and just go out and play with your mates. Like they're your best mates. You spend 6 days a week with them and you do everything with them. You train, you do absolutely everything on away trips. You're sleeping in the same hotel. You're eating 3 meals a day together. So having them boys there with me made it a whole lot easier. And
So when does the point hit then that you've made an AFL grand final? The body's good. The stories that you've gone through to get yourself to where you are. You've talked about the fact that the team is up and about and in a really good place. Talk to us a little bit about that week leading into, what's ultimately probably up there as I'm gonna make the call. I'm sure it's up there as one of the best days of your life.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Anything else? She's not listening. It's all good.
Don't worry, that day comes close. It was. It was
about that week, mate.
An incredible week. So I had the funeral on the Tuesday. The club actually flew me back in a chopper. They didn't want me to be driving 7 hours in a round trip, so I went down that day, spoke, and then come back up, and I was at training that afternoon for the open training session, just to get back in around the boys, and then then focus on the week ahead. So that was good, and I wanted to be there for that. And then it was like I could move on and focus on the week ahead and probably just get that little bit more enjoyment around it and around the boys. And it was an incredible week. The grand final parade it's something special. That is that's out of this world. That's like Hollywood movie star sort of shit. You're literally there's 100,000 plus people just lining the streets of Melbourne, and you're just in the back of a car, just waving to them, it was. That's what it felt
especially after having a big game as well. There must have been buzz about yourself.
Every media person
going on, you must be feeling pretty good about yourself and your place in the team and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I knew I wasn't getting dropped for the granny, so that was a good thing. So I knew I'd earned my spot. But it was an incredible week and one that Bevo told us that we should enjoy. Don't try and shy it away, embrace it. It's real. You've earned it. Whatever happens, on the day, enjoy this week. So that sort of gave us a lot of comfort and just sort of embracing the moment and the fans and just soaking it all in. So, it was pretty cool.
Mate, grand final day. Let's get there. Sorry, I know. Well, I hope you're all right for a bit of time. We told you 45 minutes. I've still got a list of the old cliche pub questions to ask you. But it's been fantastic chat. We appreciate your time. So just give me this one when you got to go at any point, mate. But grand final day. We have to get there. I mean, I have the stats as 13 disposals, a goal, 11 tackles, the second most tackles on the game, albeit behind Tommy Mitchell, who I mentioned at the top, who had a 13. But mate, what was that day like for you? Do you remember it vividly, or is it kind of one that just sort of flashes past? And what's it like to play in a winning grand final?
Wouldn't say I remember it vividly, but like definitely just like little moments and stuff along the day. It becomes a big blur and just with the emotion and everything that goes on. And I remember getting up and taking the dogs for a walk in the morning and then going to the game. And it was, something different. Like it's not a normal day. I know that it's not a normal footy day. And the stands are filling up quick even when you're normally going out for your first warm up and there's not many people there. It's nearly packed at that stage. And the loudness and the roar when you come out before the game was deafening. Just the ground was shaking, like it was crazy. But once the game started, like you actually, I don't know about other players, but like I don't really hear the crowd too much once I'm playing. It sort of just gets all blocked out. But I remember before the game, like that was something that I'll never forget. And then, with a minute and a half to go, I remember Bevo coming down onto the bench and sort of just hugging us all on the bench. And it was like, we've actually done this. Like, it was amazing. And then, the celebration started and we got our medals and then all the fun stuff.
Were you on the ground, Clay, when Tom Boyd kicked that goal? Or where were you?
Yeah, I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I think I was on the ground. I think I was on the half-forward flank.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Bali of all places on a footy trip, and I've got to be honest, Clay Smith was one of the names that I pulled out of the hat. So I can thank you for 13 sips in one skull when you kicked the goal, mate, with my Guava vodka cruisers. So thank you very much, mate. That was much appreciated.
You didn't have me the week before. You might not have made it.
Thank God. I wouldn't have made it to Bali, mate. Let's be honest. Anyone who knows me, I don't hold my liquor too well, albeit a cruiser. So that's totally fine. But, mate, absolute ripper. I mean, you go, Del. You got a question?
Yeah. So you've won the grand final. I'm going to sort of go past it a little bit. Ryan Griffin. So he was a good mate of yours when you got to the club. He was like a mentor to you. He got traded away. Was it just before that season?
Yeah.
How was it?
That was a hard one. We spent all of our off season together. Did a lot of fishing and that up in Darwin, Northern Territory. He really did. He took me away to Adelaide a couple of times to the farm. So I spent a lot of time with him. He sort of struggled a lot when he didn't really sort of want to take up the captaincy. He was sort of a leader on the field, but a very quiet person. Didn't really speak a whole lot, but just the player he was in the competition. Like I think he was one of the top 5 or so players in the comp at the time. And Macca sort of really wanted him to take it over. And it's hard. I don't think it suits some players. Some players like to do it in their own way. And he had a few injuries that year, and I think he's better off in a leadership group. He has some good things to say, but he's a really sort of quiet, reserved person. Like he goes about it his way. Whereas you look at blokes like Boydie who sort of thrive on that and that leadership role and vocalizing it and being able to bring everyone together and sort of have the right things to say. So, yes, he struggled with injuries and I think just that sort of position. And he wasn't one that money never worried him. And that is something that I loved about him. He played footy for the love of it. I remember him telling me, I think after his 4th or 5th year, he got some stupid offer to go somewhere, but he never wanted to leave. And he honestly, I think if he didn't leave the Dogs, and he would have retired happily and just gone off with his partner Jazz and and gone camping. So he's actually doing it this year. He's got a little thing called Griffins Off Grid, and him and his partner and 2 girls are tripping right around Australia. They've got their Land Cruiser 76 series. They've got a boat on top, caravan on the back, and they've been going for the last 6 months, I think, and they're just tripping around. Like, he loves that sort of stuff. So I think just going up to Sydney where it wasn't so much of a spotlight, Leon Cameron was obviously up there, Carl Ward. It was just something different, and I think he needed it. And something that he spoke to me about a fair bit. And I just said, mate, you got to look after yourself at the end of the day. And if you're not enjoying it, then there's no point. So, yeah, it's tough. But you look at it, and if it didn't happen, we might not have ever won a flag. So,
that's true.
Still believe everything sort of happens for a reason. And, so I think that it was what's best for him at the time. And, yeah.
What was his social media thing he's doing? Griffin Off-Road, was it?
Griffin Off-Grid. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, for people listening in, tap into the social media, give it a like, and see what he's up to.
So, mate, before we wrap up, and mate, we'll also ask you just sort of what you're doing now and any final words you kind of want to have there. I think we can't do a podcast with an AFL player on here without asking a couple of the cliche cornered questions. So we'll make them quick. We can make them short answered. You can pass if you want. Toughest opponent?
Oof. Toughest opponent. Probably Nat Fyfe, I think.
Nice.
Come up against him a couple of times. Very, very big boy. Tall, can obviously jump very high. Very solid, like just a very awkward sort of person to match up. Not too bad around the contest, but if there's a marking contest on the wing, I don't think I was winning any of those. So
he doesn't miss bicep day, I hear. He doesn't miss bicep day.
I don't think he misses much of the gym days. So just that week.
Biggest pest, either at the Bulldogs or pest on the field. Who's the biggest pest you've come around?
Liver.
Liver's a ripper. He's a pest, that's for sure. But I think if you ask anyone from the Dogs and you ask for the biggest pest, it'd be me. I'll admit to that. Toby Green was someone that I had a fair few run-ins with. On the footy field, I had a few run-ins with him before playing AFL. We had a couple in TAC, and mate, if you played with him, you'd love him. But I obviously never played with him. So
good to see that carries over. I don't mind that. It's good to see it carries over a little bit from TAC.
Oh, mate, I've got nothing but respect for him. I love the way he plays the game. He crosses the line sometimes, but that happens in footy. But we definitely butted heads a few times, and we had a few run-ins.
I feel like any true AFL fan, that's their response. Like, you've got to respect him as a player, but at the same time, you'd be like, you know what, he's a pest. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You might have touched on this already. Like, who was your best footy mate? Who was your guy?
Libba was probably my best mate. Yeah.
Who was it, sorry?
Libba. Yeah. We spent a lot of time together, and on and off the field, and formed a really, really close friendship. Little Lukey Dell was a good mate. Jackie Redpath. There's a few boys down there. Beautiful. It was good. So it's nice. I've got little Lukey Dell playing at my local footy club now. I'm coaching him.
Bring that up in a minute. Yeah.
I've got just two more. One's a little bit of down. Any regrets? Are there any regrets that you have in your AFL career?
No. Look, I think they're just learning life lessons. I made some mistakes, nights out on the piss, stuff like that, some of the professional stuff. But I also put my head down, ass up, and worked my ass off as well, and got absolutely everything I could out of my body. And I can sleep with my head on the pillow happily knowing that I did that. I tried everything. Every game I played, I gave everything. I never sort of went in half-assed. No, I think most things that I do in life, I do flat out. And Bevo said it was probably one of my biggest strengths, but it was one of my biggest weaknesses at times, that everything I did, I just did flat out. And sometimes it got me in trouble, but that's also what he loved about me and my teammates loved. So, yeah.
Love it. Last one for me, mate, and then I'll pass over to Dell. We can talk a little bit about life after footy, and then we'll close it up there. Other than the GF, the prelim, and I'm going to throw in your debut because it sounds like it was a rip snorter as well. Is there a moment just on the field that stands out for you as a memorable moment for you?
First game was up there. That was special. I was floating on clouds that day. Like when I kicked my first goal, like I don't even know what celebration I did. Like it was, and then I kicked 4 in the first half. Like it was like some of them were just falling in my lap. I was like, "What is going on?" Like it was too good to be true. Like I honestly, like when I was running back to the wing, I think I was playing on. Like I couldn't even feel my feet touching the ground. Like it was pretty surreal. But even stuff like a lot of the stuff in the locker rooms and some of the banter in games and that, and the away trips when you're playing away and staying in the hotels and stuff like that. Like they're memories that I'll cherish forever, not just the ones on the field.
No, I love it. Did you? Oh, sorry, I'll pass to Dell after this. But did you start doing the math in your head? I'm a chance for 8. I'm a chance for 8 here. Eight's on the cards.
Oh,
yeah, surely. Being a half forward, I'm talking as an amateur footballer here, but mate, I'm still a half forward. I did the count. Don't you worry about that. If I've kicked 4 in the first quarter, I'm on for 16 here.
Yeah, kick 2 in the quarter. Yeah, I'm on for 8.
Yeah.
No, I've done that.
Even if you've only kicked 1 in the first, you're still on for 8.
Yeah.
Now, there are a couple of things I want to ask. So earlier this year, on the social media, the Western Bulldogs put out a thing where you went back to the footy club and had a bit of a chat to the guys. What was that chat about? Was that resilience-based and how you've had to overcome adversity and the potholes, as you said earlier, in your life to achieve the overall, goal of winning a premiership and having a career as successful as yours? Or what was the line of that discussion that you had there?
Yeah, so very, very similar to along those lines. So at footy clubs, I think at most footy clubs, they've got a thing called a development academy. So first and second year players. So they do a lot of separate meetings and stuff to catch up on game plan, just general stuff. You learn how to cook, you learn how to pay bills and do all that sort of stuff. So it's development academy, sort of just to get you ready, sort of catch up to speed. And I got invited by Mad Dog down there. He's one of the assistant coaches, and he asked me if I would be happy to come along and talk to the boys along the lines of it doesn't always go to plan, and the highs and lows, I guess, of footy. Jamie asked me to come down, and I jumped at the chance. Obviously, with COVID and stuff that all happened, so I sort of missed those 3 years of sort of much contact with the boys. I spoke to them still online and over the phone and that, but you couldn't really see them too much. They were sort of in an even bigger bubble than what we were. So I jumped at the chance and getting back into the club and was so thankful. And I got to let a lot out of it myself, and I think the boys did as well. And then from there, I asked Bevo if he minded me coming in and spending a bit more time around the boys and around the coaches, obviously going down the coaching path the last 2 or 3 years, and just a great learning curve just to sort of watch them go about it, pick up some drills, and but ultimately it's nice to be around the boys again. There's still a few boys there that I played a lot of footy with, so it's nice to hang out with them, and I catch up and grab lunch. So if I have an RDO or a day works out where I've got work off, I'll just jump in there and catch up with all of them.
Cool. Now, for our viewers listening, footy doesn't last forever. So, Clay Smith, now, after your footy career is finished, what are you doing for a crust, if you don't mind just or sharing that information with us? And then you're coaching a footy club now. Tell us about that.
I'm still in my work shirt. I've had a long day. So I work 6:30 till 5:30 tonight. So on the metro tunnel in the city, doing the underground train tunnel. So been on that the past five and a bit years. I think 5 years in August it'll be on the metro. So did 3.5 years as a steel fixer, which anyone listening, don't do that. That's it's very, very, very hard work. Mate, it's a great job. I met some great people, but lugging around 80, 100 kilo bars all day and holding them up and tying them and getting cuts from tie wire and everything. It's when you retire from footy when your body's no good. I don't think. But yeah, so doing that. But now working for a different company, Ardrea, and pretty much just operating machinery. I got me forklift license. I got me doggies ticket. Actually got chucked on the 100-ton crane today. One of the doggies didn't turn up, and the boss just said, "Do you want to jump on the crane today?" Got my C6 crane ticket, so I can drive any mobile crane up to 60 ton. So sort of just operating machinery now. So it's been good. Getting a few tickets under my belt, and so I've been on the same site for 5 years now, which is a fair while.
Which, like for our viewers, there is life after footy. So that's probably the important thing that we want to get out of this. Once an AFL footballer finishes their career at the top, it's not just that's it. There is still life and family, and you're coaching Point Cook. Is that right?
Yep. So, yeah, definitely. Oh, mate, don't worry. I had my battles when I finished footy. I really did. I went through some of my darkest days and come out the other side, thankfully. And getting to your point, footy probably did that for me. I sort of shut off from everything and sort of thought this is it. And then, I got back into coaching. I went down to Willie C. Wise in the VAFA just to help out sort of as a midfield assistant coach, and absolutely loved it. Just once I sort of got back around that culture and what footy can give back to you, and what I could give back to footy, and teaching some of the boys down there, and that sort of kick-started me back going again, and sort of finding that passion and something to do, and that's what I was missing. And sort of lost everything at 25 years old of winning a flag and then having it all ripped away, and sort of lost the passion for life a little bit there for a while, and then it was about finding what I enjoy doing, and footy is that, whether it be on one side of the white line or the other, I still love it either way. I've always loved sort of teaching and working with the younger kids. So it was awesome. I worked with them for a year, and then got asked to come out to Point Cook last year as a senior assistant coach, and so they wanted me to be the coach straight away, but I sort of just said I wasn't too comfortable doing it. I wanted to get to know the club and the boys and what it was all about before I did that. So we sort of had a transition phase with the coach there at the time. He's a ripper, Brady Jacobs, and so I was starting to take over training by halfway through the year, and he sort of let me just take over from that backside of the year, and the players knew that. And then the end of last year, I obviously took over, and this is my first year as a senior coach. So I signed for 2 years as a senior coach. It's been awesome.
Good.
Got the first pre-season out of the way and sitting 5-2 at the moment and third on the ladder. And we only won 4 games for the year last year. So,
it's promising. And you've got some old footy boys playing with you, Shawnee, Wyatt, Lukey Dalhouse, they're playing with you.
I was going to say, did Lukey Dalhouse or a bit of recruiting from a Clay Smith have anything to do with the 4-game turnaround to 5-2?
Yeah,
Surely.
It definitely helps, mate. I know that. Obviously, I don't know if you've coached footy, Mickie has, but trying to get players to clubs is one of the hardest things to do. So it was still hard, but it was made a lot easier. A lot of them, Shawnee and Simon, I've known Simon since I was 6 or 7 years old. Shawnee's obviously my best man at my wedding. Dal, I played 7 years of footy with Dal. Like, they're all blokes that I know. Shawnee and Simon both live with me here in Melbourne. So it made it a lot easier. The conversation was pretty honest and open, and it wasn't lowballing them or them asking for too much.
Right. Yeah.
This is what we can do. This is what it is. This is who else I think I'm going to be able to get, and I think we're going to improve as a footy club. And it's not just them players, it's what they bring out from our younger boys and teaching our younger boys. We had a very young list last year, and they probably shouldered a lot more of the load than what they needed to. So you bring in some mature bodies that have played at the high level, and they start to rub off on the young boys, their training standards and stuff like that. We brought in a fitness coach from Melbourne Athletic, Michael Culliver, and brought in GPSs, much to their dislike.
Geez.
Yeah, we got GPS. So all the boys wear GPS on game day, but it's like a competition now. Like they see the high meters a minute they're running, their game loads, their sprint efforts. So it's sort of just another way to track how they are going. So we were doing that in training. We'd track 5 or 6 of the boys per session, and just change it up just to monitor loads and stuff like that. And and just try and set them up for their best outcome. So at the start, they were a little bit nervous about it, but now it's sort of just another way to sort of get an edge.
For sure.
Awesome.
And one more before we do finish up. Boxing. You've taken up boxing. Tell us about your career so far.
Yeah, so
he tucked the chin in as he said that. He tucked it in straight away. He just tucked the chin in straight away.
Oh, mate, don't worry. Once I get a bit tired and someone hits me, the chin comes up and I just start throwing it. No, boxing's great, mate. I really enjoy the sport. Something I did growing up as a kid with Turk down in Bairnsdale, just for fitness, for footy. Used to just train a lot down there for fitness, and I've always loved that competitive side of stuff. And that was the first thing I did once I come out of footy, and I sort of went through my battles, and I got back in the gym in Yarraville, and did a fight camp there, and won my first one, and then Will tried to get me onto Wildfighter, and I was going to jump on that, but COVID hit, and then it all sort of finished up, and Tony Topic from Team Alice contacted me, and they sort of do celebrity fight nights and get AFL players fighting against each other, and some of the reality TV stars that have been on Mass and Love Island and stuff like that, and mix them in with some of the pro boxers and some of the talent they got coming through the gym, and they put on some grouse nights. So jumped on the last two of those. Won those two in the first round. I got the last fella pretty good in the first round, knocked him out cold. He hit the deck, but it's just that's my sort of thing that I can still do, that I can compete in and be competitive. That's my sort of outlet. Obviously, not being able to play footy and compete. Coaching's still good, but I need something that I can sort of compete and sort of get that competitive sort of, I don't know, juices flowing, I guess. That's my little outlet.
It's good, mate. It's good. It's good that you found that. I think anybody who's played sport at any sort of reasonable level, let alone like professional and full level, I think you've got to find that. I don't think people understand what it is like after that. You had an identity for a while, and to sort of find who you are again and what that is and what gets the juices flowing, I think is massive, mate. So, yeah, full credit to yourself. Mate, look, we said thanks for coming on. Probably take 30 to 45 minutes of your time. I'm looking at the clock in the top left corner. It's been 1 hour and 10. But, mate, this is what happens when you talk to good people who have great stories. And, mate, I've literally hung on every word that you've said. I feel like I could even talk about your life after footy for another podcast, mate, because it sounds like you're doing some awesome things and what's going on after the career that you had, which was a fun story in its own. So, mate, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on. Mickie Dell for setting it up. Clay, mate, do you have any final words that you'd like to throw out, or dare I say any sponsors you need to mention, or nah, all good? No.
I'll get those when the next fight comes up. Yeah.
Beautiful. Mate, we're here anytime. Anytime you want to promote it, mate, for sure.
Really appreciate it, boys, and thank you for having me.
Beautiful. That's great.
On behalf of Mickie Dell, myself, and everyone at Inside Fantasy Sport Podcast, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. To all our listeners, make sure you click subscribe, get on board. Mickie Dell and I will be bringing up a bit of a wrap-up show and getting you ready for the next round of All Things Supercoach. But hopefully everyone's enjoyed this podcast. This has been the Insight Fantasy Sport Podcast. Peace out.
See ya.